And hello, and good day. This is Boles.tv. It's Boles.television, BOLES.tv. Coming to you live and in person, high noon. Hello, nice to see you. I appreciate you being here. Well, my hair is looking a little out of touch today. A little wild. Okay. And the skin? We went to the skin doctor yesterday and got our blue light treatment, which means you sit there and you get flashed by a blue light, a UV light, that is supposed to, in some way, help mitigate existing skin damage. And sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not helpful. But so far, so good. My skin doctor seems to be relatively at ease with the progress of the blue light treatment. And in meeting my skin doctor yesterday, we had a nice conversation. His phone lines were down, so there was a lot of hecticness going on, and he was on his cell phone quite a bit. But he was very interested in a live stream. I guess he lives in a building in Manhattan where he knows an influencer there. And this influencer lives in his building and claims to make a lot of money being an influencer, but he doesn't know what that means. I believe he's in his 80s. How it works, how an influencer makes money, how live streamers make money. And so we really didn't talk about skin at all. The whole conversation was about live streaming and income and advertising and how it all works. And I'm not saying I know anything, but it was definitely an interesting conversation. I'm not sure he understands what it means either. But at least we both know that we came to a common understanding that live streaming is something interesting. He didn't really even understand what live streaming is. He said, well, what do you do? What is it like? Very good questions. Who knows? What are we doing here? I have no idea. So I also went to the pharmacy the other day because we're going out of town. We need to get a holiday fill. Now, if you've ever dealt with a holiday fill, every once in a while, or a vacation fill, you go to the pharmacy and say, look, I'm going out of town. Can I get my medication filled early? And I think once or twice a year, your insurance company will approve it, and it's no big deal. And we've done it several times over the last 5 years. It was suggested to us by our pharmacist. So our former favorite pharmacist, who no longer works there, I guess he moved up and away or over and out, I don't know. But it's still very disappointing because he's been replaced by someone who used to be a tech at our pharmacy. And that person, who was very friendly as a tech, went off to, I guess, pharmacy school, came back, has a degree, and now replaced our full-time friend. And we've known that tech pharmacist for, I would say, 10 years, 15 years. And so I went up yesterday and said, hey, I need a holiday fill, a vacation fill. Do you think you could possibly help me? And the pharmacist replacement said, well, you have to go home and you have to call your insurance company and you have to ask them. And I was very surprised because I know this person. Hey, it's artist Dora. A big league good morning back to you, my friend. I hope you're all right and doing well and not getting rained on. Looks like it's going to rain today. So I said to the tech, now pharmacist, well, that's interesting because, our friend before you several times called our insurance company, got approval for a vacation fill. It wasn't a big deal. We didn't send us home to call the insurance company, which is, to me, just weird. And the pharmacist's eyes got very big and said, well, that pharmacist was in violation of code and a violation of policy and a violation of... And I just, Didn't say anything because I wasn't going to go home and call. And so the pharmacist checked the computer and said, oh, I'll call. And then I guess the pharmacist, because it's like the difference of 4 days between now and filling it. And some medications, they won't fill until the day of you run out. It's very weird. Others, they'll fill all the time. And it doesn't necessarily seem to be generic. And the pharmacist said, oh, it went through. I said, what? He said, yeah, I don't have to call. You don't have to call. It all went through. I'll fill it right now. I said, well, that's fantastic. Then, friendly, oh, yeah, if you could wait around, I'll have it for you in 20 minutes. Oh, isn't that great? 2 minutes before. I'm not helping you. Go home. So you come to learn, when you have a really good person that you know and who is very helpful, and maybe you're helpful to them in some way, that they go out of their way, to help you and make code violations. And it's very nice, and I appreciate it a lot. This new pharmacist, whom I have known for 15 years, did not want to help me at all. And I'm a little disappointed. But I guess that's the new way. My old pharmacist, when the COVID-19 shots came out, hoarded 2 shots for us. Hey, it's Artist Dora saying, funny, I'm having the same issue. I'm good, thank you. For some reason, my insurance company will only refill month by month my cholesterol medicine. I don't understand why. That is very, very interesting. Now, I know from my limited experience that all of these insurance companies have different policies. But our insurance company is, if you have a new medication that you've never had before, they will not do a 90-day fill. They will do a 30-day fill, and then after that, they'll do a 90-day fill. I guess the rationale is if you're on it for a month and it makes you sick or it doesn't work, they don't want to pay for 60 days you're not going to use. But I guess in their mind, our insurance company, they will pay the first 30 days, and then the doctors don't like to deal with this because then you have to say to the doctor, okay, write me one prescription that will end in 30 days, and then write me another prescription for 90 days. They don't understand it. I said, look, I know you don't understand it, just because they always write me a 90-day. I said, this is a new medication. They won't fill it for 90 days. They'll drop it down to 30, and then I can't. And then if I'd want to do a full fill, it'll fill for the remaining 90, which would be 60. And I don't want a 60-day. I want a 90-day. But I just wrote you a 90-day prescription. I know, but they only filled it for 30, and they left 60. So sometimes if you have new medication, you have to be proactive and say, okay, let's try it. Just write me a 30-day prescription, see if it works, and then at the end, write me a whole new prescription for 90 days, and then they'll fill it. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be you could just get 90 days out of the box. And then there are places like Amazon, which is terrific. They will fill a prescription for you, and if you're like taking 3 or 4 pills, they'll put them in pill packs, right, and send it to you. But they will only fill 30 days at a time. So that's a big bummer. Who wants to get your medication every month from Amazon? I mean, sometimes it'll deliver, sometimes they'll deliver it to your neighbor. So when Amazon is able to do a 90-day pill pack, that's going to be a game changer, because for our insurance, it costs the exact same amount of money, which is so ridiculous, for a 30-day supply as opposed to a 90-day supply. It's exactly the same amount. And in New Jersey, pharmacies are required by law to fill medication requests with generics first. and only use the name brand if it's not available in generic, or if your doctor doesn't say dispense as written, but has to write you a letter to the insurance company saying, this cannot be filled generically, this has to be filled name brand, here's my signature, here's a letter. That's just, I mean, it's great because it really does save people a lot of money. But I guess there are some cases, in talking to my doctor friends, where people need the actual non-generic version of the medication. And if you ever have to do telemedicine or these walk-in clinics, which I think are terrific, but they're not a replacement for a regular doctor, in that their policy is they will only write you a prescription for 90 days. For 30 days. They refuse to write you a 90-day prescription. They refuse to write you refills. They will write you a prescription for 30 days, period. That is it. So, if you're looking for long-term care or to have a relationship in telemedicine, unless your regular doctor does telemedicine and you just go like to, one of these doctor on demands or telehealth or whatever, they're not going to be I guess they want you to come back, right? Every 30 days to see them, to pay them their fee. They can bill your insurance for an office visit. It's all about money. And in some ways, I'm getting a little jaundiced, dismayed by that, in America, we talk about being proactive with our health. Don't wait until it happens. Cut it off at the pass. But the more I'm learning is, the body is unpredictable. And you might see something in a scan, and maybe it's there and maybe it's not. But doctors today just love to run all kinds of tests and refer you to here and there, looking for something wrong with you that they can then have you come back every month and see them on a regular basis. So some people are into that, some people are not into that. I am from the Midwest. I tend not to be into that. And there are doctors who get very fussy. Oh, we have to do blood every 6 months. Oh, you have to come in every 3 months, and at a minimum, maybe every month for a while you have to come in. Why? I mean, the difference between a month and 3 months, a month and 6 months, if I fall over dead of a heart attack, it's my choice, it's my life. And seeing you every month is not going to make a difference because I don't see you every day. But I know that's an unpopular point of view. A lot of people love to go to the doctor. I mean, they get addicted to it. And of course, that's what doctors want. They want patients. They want as many people as they can see, and they refer you to their friends. And their friends, I'm quite certain, I don't want to say kickback, but I'm sure there is a reverse payment made for all the referrals that are made to you. And I've been to a couple of them where I've been referred, and they say, why are you here? I say, I don't know. I was told to come and see you. Oh. Well, there's nothing wrong with you. Give me my $25 copay. Oh, it's a killer. And then I found out that a good friend of mine who works in a big residential building got COVID. I couldn't believe it. And she's very careful, has a young son, vaccinated. She has a couple of friends in the police department who, at the beginning of COVID, died of COVID really fast and very rapidly. And they were not street cops. They worked for the police department. So they weren't, out mingling with people all day. They were in an office. But they got COVID and died. It's terrifying. You would think that wouldn't happen. And she said it was the strangest thing because she went back in time, because it's very difficult. You have to play with your calendar. When you test positive for COVID, it takes 5 days to incubate in your body. So you have to go back on your calendar 5 days to that day and kind of, within a day or two, Look back and see where you were, who you were with, what happened, what's going on. How were you exposed? Where did you get it? And so I asked her that, and she said, I don't know. I just work, none of my family got sick. My child didn't get sick. Everything's fine. I don't know what happened. And I said, well, you work in a building with 1,000 residents who come and, interact with you and breathe on you all day. And she said, well, that's true. And she missed 5 days of work. And I said, how did you figure out you were sick? And she said, oh, it was terrible. My son was in the hospital. I was very weak for a couple of days. And I thought, well, I'm overexerting myself at work. I have some aches and pains. I'm getting older. Okay. So they had to wheel out her son, her young baby son, to her because she couldn't pick him up. Wheeled him out. He said he wanted to go to McDonald's. And she said, okay, we'll go to McDonald's. And she just said that this McDonald's that is near the hospital is, in her opinion, the best McDonald's in the tri-state area because, she said, I guess they make everything to order and it's very fast and very fresh. And she said it's the juiciest, most delicious hamburger and French fries you'll ever have at this particular McDonald's. And she seems to be a fast food expert based on how and what she eats every day, which is not a bad thing. And she said she sat down with her son to have this delicious lunch, and she was chewing, and she couldn't taste anything. And she said she was filled with fear and dread as she's chewing this delicious hamburger that she cannot enjoy. And she said to herself, okay, this is it. I have COVID. I don't know how. I got it. Now I know. So she went home, tested herself, COVID. And then she said it really, really hit her that night. Couldn't sleep, tossing, turning. She could not sleep on her stomach. She couldn't breathe. She said it felt like her whole body was being compressed by steel bands. And she said it was very painful. And she said, she's maybe 35. She said, I don't know how old people would ever survive this. It is so awful and so painful. I understand why they die. And she said, and I'm all vaxxed up. I have the shots. She said, that's what saved me. And I said, you're right about that. So she missed 5 days of work. And at her work, if you don't work, you don't get paid. So she lost 5 days of income. I think if they get a very paltry, few sick days a year. It's very strange. But when you're an hourly wage worker, you don't have a lot of power. You don't have a lot of prestige in the company, even though you are completely invaluable to the company for the services you provide. So I felt very sad for her. And so far as I know, Jana Marie and I are still, as they awfully call it, COVID virgins. We have not been touched yet, but we're expecting it soon, and when it hits, we'll be ready for it. We don't want it. We wear our masks everywhere we go. And some people make fun of us. Went to the mall. Artist store, where's your mask? It's very smart. Who would want to get this? And now they said that the deaths from COVID in the past 2 weeks are now at 41,000. 41,000 new deaths from COVID in the last 2 weeks, which is the highest the deaths from COVID have ever been in the history since COVID started. And just yesterday, Phil Murphy, the governor of New Jersey, said, we will never have another mask mandate. But if you want to wear your mask, go ahead. But I'm not telling you to. What is your job as a governor is to lead and protect. But then we have that awful Ron DeSantis in Florida, who was a big vaccine pro, and now he's against it. Now he's going to sue the companies who created the vaccines. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy insane and very discouraging. And it's so funny. Jana had a meeting, at the college where she teaches, and she said it was a room full of people, and there were only 2 people wearing masks. One was a student, and the other was her. Everybody else, no mask. But boy, I tell you, when you're teaching and a student gets sick, then everybody panics. Oh, I can't possibly get COVID. I have so many things I have to do. I can't come to class if there's residual COVID in the air. And you think, well, you wouldn't get COVID. You wouldn't have to worry about it, really, if you put a mask on. But they don't want to hear that. So now RSV is rising. COVID is rising. Winter is coming. It's all very distressing. Now, hey, speaking of distressing, did you hear about the dancer, producer from The Ellen Show who committed suicide? It's just, I don't want to talk about it too much because it's just so sad and depressing. Left behind a wife. They've been married for 9 years. He adopted her daughter, I guess, and they had 2 children together. And I guess yesterday, he got into a car, didn't say goodbye, didn't call, which his wife said was very strange, drove to a motel, checked in, and shot himself in the head with a gun. And I only know that because I went to TMZ.com. They always have the gory details. Love him or hate him, they give you the details and they tell you what happened. Every place else, he was found in a motel. Art historian says, I don't understand it. It's so sad for the kids and wife. It really is. And it makes you wonder how a person, gets so lost and so sad and so profoundly depressed. And I thought it was, money. He had been, the producer of The Ellen Show for many years, and then that closed down because I guess Ellen is a terrible person. Well, he's out of money. He's got responsibilities. He just needs to run away. And then you read his biography, and the guy seemed like he was working. He had a lot of projects going on. So there's something else in him that was just very disappointed and very lost. And then you read about it, and people say, oh, just reach out to your friends, make sure they're okay. Yeah, true, but it doesn't really work. I've discussed my friend Oscar Long, who went missing several years ago. People who know, I guess, think that he's dead. I don't think so. But other people, police, say when you buy a one-way train ticket from New York City out to some boondoggle stop near a forest, that there are people who just get off a train. Hey, it's Artist Door. Sometimes I think the more you have, the less that matters in the scheme of things. That's very true. And I guess our friend Oscar was last seen at this train station in upstate New York, and he just got off the train, and the police think that he just walked into the woods. And I asked, people who have been told that, I said, well, what do you think of that? If you knew Oscar, he was very urban, scared of many things, neurotic, an actor, funny guy. He would not walk into the woods to die. And then the police think that he just, sat down, decided to die, didn't eat, didn't drink, and was attacked by animals and eaten. So there's no evidence of his body. For me, and maybe it's because I'm just idealistic and I don't want to believe terrible things, it doesn't make sense. Not for Oscar. It doesn't make sense. So I'm hoping he's still alive somewhere. I guess the rumor was he was involved with the mafia. He owed them $50,000. He wasn't paying his credit cards. He'd run up. I don't find that believable either. I find it believable that as an actor, you can be in debt for a lot of money to a lot of people. And I guess his daughter saw an argument between father and some guy dressed in black, and they were arguing in the park, and she was sitting on the park bench, and her dad came back upset. But, the mafia is not going to kill you over $50,000. The mafia is going to maybe hurt you and make sure you stay alive so you can pay them back. What good are you to the mafia if you're dead? They want their money back. If you're dead, they don't collect. Now, if you owed them $1 million, maybe to save face, they'd have to kill you. But for $50,000, they might hurt you a little bit and find a way to help you pay off what you owe. So I don't think that makes sense either. It doesn't make any sense to me. And the other experiences I've written about and talked about is my friend Jamie, wonderful actor, musician. Worked on a show that I did with him. We worked together, had a wonderful time. Something's flashing on my computer. I don't know what happened. Oh, I have to verify myself. Big white screen. And, you do a show, wonderful time, went to high school with him, went to the university together, see him every once in a while on campus. We'd sit and chat a little bit. And the next thing you know, Jamie's dead. I think he did it in his car with an exhaust. And you wonder, how did he get lost? And you think, is there anything I could have done? Could I said, if we got together, could I have asked him how he's feeling? I mean, it's very difficult. That's why I say, you're supposed to talk to people, find out how they're feeling, give them a call. Well, Jamie and I called. We talked. I never thought to say, oh gosh, are you depressed? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? Nothing like that, because Jamie was always sort of an up guy. But as I've also said, when it comes down to it, if you're lost or not feeling well, and you think the only way out is to do something terrible, in the end, it's your life. You're leaving behind people who are probably going to be very disappointed and upset and angry for a long time. I don't know how you explain to two young children that daddy's not coming home. Why? Well, he went into a motel. And what did he do there? Well, you have to tell them the truth, because the truth is out there. It's published right there on TMZ.com. They'll find out eventually. You have to find a way to tell them. And who would want to hear that? But you have to tell them, because you can't protect them. Hey, so in other news, this is fascinating to me, and we've discussed name and likeness before. Name, image, and likeness. It's not a football thing, but it is sort of a college football thing, but it's also a college volleyball thing. The idea is now that, in addition to offering scholarships, universities may offer, I guess it's only student athletes. Now, interesting. Can name, image, likeness also have to do with, genius chemistry kids that you want to come to your university? I don't know. I should find out. But right now it's focused mainly on football. And yesterday, a big brouhaha, as the kids say, where Ohio State came out and said, hey, look, we lost a kid to Georgia. And people are saying, well, Ohio State loses to Georgia? How does that happen? And Georgia's a good school, but so is Ohio State. And Ohio State is a public university, but they have a lot of money. And as last year, the head coach said, look, in order for us to maintain our starting players, we have to come up with $14 million. When he said that to donors, to keep them. Now, that's a lot of money. Well, the story is this 18-year-old kid, I don't think they've named the kid, and they haven't said what position he plays, went to Ohio State and said, okay, you want me to play for you? I'll play for you, but I need this amount of money. And Ohio State said, look, we can't even give you half of that. And the kid said, bye, I'm going to Georgia. And I guess the deal was, I'll show you the article, but I guess the deal was something outrageous, like Georgia offered this 18-year-old child $1.8 million as a signing bonus to come to Georgia. And then he'll be paid $800,000 a year to play football. Now, that's a lot of money. And I guess Ohio State said, look, we could only offer the kid $750,000. This is not sustainable. And there's a rumor somewhere that everyone on the big football team, I don't think it was Nebraska, but the average price that they were all getting on the successful football team, every starting player was getting $600,000 a year to stay put. I don't know how that's possible. It used to be they were student athletes and the university made all the money. Now the kids are pulling all the money, not out of the university, because I don't think the university can pay them directly. They have to be paid by these booster clubs. They consist of rich people who pay off these kids to go play for their school. So if you're a middling kid, I guess, that's where you were really talking about. The superstars will go on and play pro football. But if you're a so-so kid who has some talent and you play reasonably well in college, and you make $1 million over a 4-year career, that's pretty good, right? Then you don't have to worry about getting drafted. You have some money and you can stay where you are and be happy and graduate from school and you have a little nest egg. So this is the fascinating story from SportsIllustrated.com. Ohio State missed out on a 5-star recruit as college football name, image, and likeness arms race, which is exactly what it is, heats up. New rules in college football have completely changed the landscape for the sport over the last few years. As for the first time, players are able to legally put some serious money in the bank. Money serious enough that apparently a powerhouse like Ohio State is falling behind in the arms race to lure top prospects to his football program. That's a big problem. I mean, there may be, 20 super-duper superstar kids every year? And Nebraska's trying to be up and coming and paying their coach, what is it, $7 million a year? Well, how much are you going to pay your superstar kids? They brought in a quarterback last year. The rumor was, I think, that they were paying him $600,000 to be the quarterback, a so-so quarterback on a bad team. Pretty good money. Ohio State missed out on a 5-star recruit because they could not pay him even half, could not pay him even half of what he was looking for. They didn't get him over $750,000. The same Twitter user then relayed that his own source claimed Georgia offered the same recruit $1.8 million to sign with the school that amounted to $800,000 per season. Wow. Ohio State's place in the new name, image, likeness market in college football came into clear focus recently when athletic director Gene Smith sent out a statement to supporters asking fans and business leaders to support the Buckeye Collectives. As head football coach Ryan Day made headlines during the summer when he reportedly told businessmen and Ohio State supporters, the football team, hey, we need $13 million in name, image, and likeness to keep the roster on campus. I mean, insane. Absolutely insane. Smith's recent statement, an overall increase in money sloshing through name, image, and likeness collectives across college football from mega boosters, would seem to imply that Day's estimate may have already increased since the summer. And on the Husker list, people are talking about this and saying, well, how do these kids manage that kind of money? And they say they're not employees of the university because the university's not paying them. The boosters are just giving it to them. So are they independent contractors? And about 30% of whatever they're paid, they have to give in taxes to the federal state government. Do these kids know how to do that? Do they have, a team of managers and accountants? I don't think so. So what do? Get a W-2 form? I guess the more successful ones start their own companies. They become an LLC or a sole proprietorship, and they file and they get protections. It's really shocking where you can have millionaires walking on the campus, and all they do is play football. Ugh. Really, really fascinating. So now we're going to have an interesting brief conversation about AI art. Now we've been talking about AI text the last couple of days. Now we're swinging back into art, and we might talk a little bit about text as well, because it's exploding everywhere. You cannot escape it, and there's no hiding from it. So we have to face it, figure it out, and knock it down. Now, Guillermo del Toro is a movie director, okay? Has a very nice eye, very photographic style, high fantasy style, and he directed The Shape of Water. Now, that's where we have to start from, okay? He directed The Shape of Water, which was a terrible, ridiculous, stupid movie. It was a remake of Swamp Thing from the 1950s. Now, he won't necessarily admit that, but he'll call it a tribute to Swamp Thing. But people who know, if you've seen both movies, that's the story. And it was beautifully shot, had some wonderful acting in it, but the story was just ridiculous. The story about a disabled young woman who wants to have sex with a sea monster. That's the story. And that wins the Academy Award for Best Picture of the Year. Now, there are lots of interesting things that go on behind the scenes when it comes to Picture of the Year. First, Guillermo del Toro has a very good reputation. He was kind of artsy-fartsy, as they say. Made a lot of interesting movies, never really got the recognition he deserved. He's been around for a long time. He's not disappeared. That counts. A lot of these people don't even see the movies. They hear about it. The name, I know that name. And The Shape of Water just happens to have a fantastic title. So you hear Guillermo del Toro. Oh, that actor's in it. And what's it called? The Shape of Water. Well, the Academy Award goes to The Shape of Water. That's what I think happened. Because people didn't vote for that movie because it was a good movie. It was not a good movie. It was a horrible movie. Ridiculous movie. Beautifully shot movie. Not so well directed. And horribly told as a story. But it looked great. So Guillermo del Toro is now working on Pinocchio, all right, which is an imitation, an invention, an adaptation of something that is already pre-existing. And he is taking that pre-existing story and image, making it his own. Sounds almost like an AI art bot to me. And presenting it as a new movie. And here's what's frustrating about this guy. He thinks AI art is an insult to life itself. So we'll take a look at this because it's the other side of what I've been saying for a while. Filmmaker recently spoke to Decider about remaking Pinocchio, which was a painstaking, delicate process that involved intricate puppets with movable silicone skin. The interview contrasted the stop-motion process with the more straightforward method of using, here we go, artificial intelligence to generate art. CGI is what it's been called all these years. Avatar is probably a 90s CGI movie, a 90% AI movie. Using artificial intelligence to generate art, revealing Del Toro had no patience for tools such as DALL-E and, my favorite, Midjourney. Quote, "I think that art is an expression of the soul. At its best, it is encompassing everything you are. Therefore, I consume and love art made by humans. I am completely moved by that. I am not interested in an illustration made by machines and the extrapolation of information. I would think, as my friend Hayo says, it's an insult to life itself. And it's just the opposite, and he's a hypocrite. Because he's doing the same thing. He is manipulating artificial things to tell a story. He's just changing it so he puts himself in the center. Well, you can say people who generate AI art are putting themselves in the center. A machine doesn't know what to do or how to correct something unless it's being guided and told how to operate. Del Toro was quoting Japanese filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki, the co-founder of Studio Ghibli and director of several award-winning animated films. And the director made the comment in the 2016 documentary, after viewing AI-generated animation of a zombie-like creature, the director said that its depiction of pain was entirely insincere and that humans were losing faith in ourselves by comparing human art to AI art. Well, the world has changed dramatically since 2016. Del Toro also mentioned artist Dave McKean, who's worked on comics like Sandman, Hellblazer, Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, and several other projects, including album artwork and feature films. According to Del Toro, he's spoken to McKean about AI art, and the illustrator's greatest hope is that AI cannot draw. It can, quote, interpolate information, but it cannot draw. It can never capture a feeling or a countenance or the softness of a human face, you know, Del Toro said. These are far from the only artists unhappy with current AI platforms which frequently use human artwork without permission from the artists. And to that I say, it doesn't make any sense. Because all art is imitation. There's nothing original. You take an idea, an experience you had. Some people are aware of what they've experienced and other people have no clue. And they take those experiences and they rewrap them into presentations of creations of art. Some art is created with a computer. Some art is created by hand. Some art is created purely by nature. Does nature have its own intention? Some say yes, some say no. Besides Pinocchio, I just love it that a guy who's remaking a story, another movie in his own thing, doesn't think he is artificially imitating what came before. Del Toro's most recent project is the live-action Netflix horror anthology, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari? Oh, wait. Inspiration or stealing? The show features a mix of original tales and adaptations of horror classics. Oh, an adaptation. Now, what is an adaptation? If not using something that's pre-existing and based on something else. The inspiration comes in the adaptation. The inspiration comes in the human telling the AI bot what to do. The show features a mix of original tales and adaptations of horror classics, including 2 episodes based on H.P. Lovecraft's short stories. Again, pre-existing adaptation. It's artificiality on display, courtesy of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Dr. Caligari's Curiosities. The director is still hoping to one day adapt Lovecraft's famous novella, The Mountains of Madness, which he believes would be perfect for similar stop-motion animation style like Pinocchio. Well, I just find that whole argument fascinating. He's fine with adaptation. He's fine with working on things that have come before, worked on by other people, maybe in the public domain, maybe not, getting permission, using inspiration. The difference between stealing and inspiration can be a very fine line, depending on context and intention. And that is why, my friend, I believe Guillermo del Toro is just as artificial and phony in his objection to AI art as he is in his own adapted art. This is in the news. This is very interesting. The hidden biases behind ChatGPT. Now, we talked about this, the hidden biases, in AI art, where I was doing a roll and a re-roll of thugs at a carnival, and every result I was getting back was a group of young black men. It took me about 100 different tries to finally get a white guy and maybe an Asian guy in the background. So the default bias, not in the collecting, but in the collection, was that if you were a thug at a carnival in the 1970s, you were black. And that bothered me. Well, now they're taking another step that in Chat GPT, which is not AI, but just, talking to a bot, there is bias in the bot. And how do you handle it? What do you do about it? It's a very interesting conversation that we need to have and we need to discuss. Hidden biases. So in something like GPT chat, which we've talked about a lot here, remember, it's the bot that doesn't like me. It's the bot who always wants to get off the phone. Doesn't want to answer any of my questions. I understand that GPT-4, the next version that's coming out soon, 2023, is going to be much more friendly and much more intuitive and can actually train itself on how to find new things and discover new things. Doesn't have to rely on human constipation in order to know something. An important consequence of hidden bias is that OpenAI do their best to hide any flaws in their system that may scare away investors. We saw a couple of This recently when they made DALL-E available to the public. DALL-E takes natural language prompts as input and generates pictures of what is written. It was trained on huge data sets of images available on the internet. The pictures in these data sets likely featured a much higher percentage of white males, and initially this was reflected in the pictures that DALL-E generated. In order to avoid accusations of bias and maintain hype, OpenAI secretly altered the prompts inputted by users by adding extra text, such as black female at the end of prompts. These were visible to the AI, but not the user. Researchers discovered this when they started using prompts such as a person holding a sign that says, and received images of people holding signs saying black female, implying that the words black female had secretly been added to the prompt. Wow. That method appears to make the AI less biased without actually fixing its inherent problems. OpenAI essentially tried to sweep the problem of bias under the rug. This is dangerous because these technologies have the potential to have massive impacts on society. So transparency is needed for us to accurately assess how safe they are to use. GPT-3, the current chatbot version, suffers from many of these same issues as DALL-E. GPT-3, the text chat conversation, was trained on a curated version of the Common Crawl dataset, a dataset made by algorithms that scrape the internet for text data. Experts believe that most of the text on the internet is generated by white males in Western countries. It is likely that GPT-3's training data overrepresents that demographic. OpenAI's own research discovered that the sentiment of the text it generated varied when talking about different racial groups. ChatGPT will not engage in any conversations it deems as to be inappropriate. This is because OpenAI are using their moderation API, another application made using GPT-3, to block certain types of unsafe content. While this helps to stop mass production of harmful content, it leaves us in the dark about how an unfiltered GPT-3 chat would respond to certain questions. It is a good thing that OpenAI are aware of these limitations and are actively working to fix them, but may also mean that the public is unaware of the technology's potential danger to society. Awareness of these dangers will be especially significant when policymakers consider GPT-3-based applications. The moderated responses of ChatGPT make language AI seem safe to start using today. However, we cannot be so confident in the text generated by language AI when they are applied to less structured tasks and given more freedom. There is still work to be done before we start using these GPT chat bots everywhere. And that's a good point. There's bias in the image, and there's bias in the text that has been gathered. Not purposefully, but just by default. And it's true that in the early days of the internet, online stuff, a lot of it was written by people who were a little older, probably more white than of a minority color. And that is the data set that they're out there grabbing. So what do you do? How do you add to it? Do you go back and try to change history and add things that weren't there? It's a difficult conversation. But you cannot fake out the people who are genuinely trying to get an answer from a chatbot or from an image bot by falsely saying, give a return that's a black female, make us look good. Because that's playing with the data set in a disingenuous way. If the data set is corrupt or biased or racist or bigoted, Let it be that way. Put a warning. Say, look, at this context of this time from here to here, when we collected this data, this is what we found. And you can judge it and analyze it in any way you like, but we're not going to try to fix it now in retrospect based on what we know now. This is who it was. This is the history of what we found. And moving forward, we can enhance it and respond to it and try to give it context by being fixed now. But we can't falsely go back in time and change what was never there and what never happened. That's our show. I thank you so much for being here. I had a wonderful conversation about AI art and also COVID and visiting the skin doctor. And then we talk about bias, inherent, programmed dataset bias in these AI images and AI chat that will be addressed and will be fixed. I'm very confident of it. But we can't dismiss what happened. We cannot dismiss the facts of the past. So until next time, I thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Miss Dora. See you. Have a good one. Same to you. Enjoy your air fryer. Have something delicious for me. And I will see you again soon. Bye.